October 23, 1924, St. Louis awoke to a single, chilling telegram that would seal the fate of an entire neighborhood. Pneumonic plague confirmed. Immediate quarantine required. Within hours, the city's most affluent streets buzzed with frantic calls, while the modest brick houses of the Ville, the city's thriving black community, fell under a silent, invisible siege. The story began months earlier, when a surge of rats escaped the cramped alleys of the Mississippi River waterfront, spilling their plague-laden fleas into the city's heart. At the time, public health officials still relied on the shadow of the 1910-1911 San Francisco epidemic to guide their response. Yet, in St. Louis, the response was not guided solely by science. It was filtered through the lens of segregation that had already divided the city's schools, housing, and public services. By early November, the first victim, a 28-year-old dock worker named Tommy Reid, collapsed in a warehouse near the river's edge, his lungs blackened with hemorrhage. The city's Board of Health, led by Dr. Edward L. Thomas, declared the case pneumonic plague, the deadliest form of the disease, transmitted directly from person to person through inhalation. The board's recommendation was swift: a cordon sanitaire around the black neighborhood where most of the infected dockworkers lived, to prevent the disease from leaping into the white districts that lined Grand Boulevard. Within 24 hours, police erected barricades of chain-link fence and barbed wire, posting armed officers at every entry point. A curfew was imposed, and a health guard, a ragtag unit of white volunteers, patrolled the streets, checking every resident's temperature and demanding proof of vaccination that no one had received. The city's newspapers, under the banner of protecting public health, ran headlines that read, "Plague threat contained," black section isolated to safeguard St. Louis. The language of protection masked a stark reality. The black community was being sacrificed on a racially charged altar of fear. In the first week of the quarantine, 12 people in the Ville died, their bodies taken to the city morgue where pathologists, still uneasy about the microscopic agent, performed rapid autopsies. Dr. William H. Raines, a young pathologist from Washington University, observed the telltale signs of pneumonic plague: bloody, frothy exudate filling the alveoli, hemorrhagic necrosis of the lung tissue, and under gram staining, the unmistakable safety pin appearance of Yersinia pestis. The autopsy reports were sent to the state health commissioner, confirming that the disease had indeed breached the city's borders, but only within the quarantine zone. The city's reaction was not limited to medical measures. Local authorities seized the narrative, framing the outbreak as a moral failing of the black community. Rumors spread that the residents were willfully ignoring sanitation laws, and the health board issued an order for the demolition of 10 houses deemed epidemiological hotspots. Those houses were razed overnight, their charred foundations a stark reminder of the city's resolve to contain the plague at any cost. Amid the panic, a trial unfolded that would become a footnote in the annals of public health law. Dr. James S. Whitfield, the only black physician practicing in the Ville, was charged with criminal negligence for allegedly failing to report a suspected case of plague. The prosecution argued that Whitfield's delay in notifying the Board of Health had allowed the disease to spread. The defense, led by civil rights attorney Charles H. Turner, countered that Whitfield had been denied access to proper diagnostic tools and that the city's own health officers had failed to provide adequate protective equipment. The courtroom, packed with white citizens and a handful of black observers, became a theater of accusation and defiance. After 3 days of testimony, the judge dismissed the charges, citing insufficient evidence and highlighting that the true source of the outbreak lay in the city's unsanitary rat control policies that had been neglected precisely in the neighborhoods where black residents lived and worked. The dismissal did little to ease the suffering of the families left behind, but it marked a rare moment where the legal system resisted the tide of racial scapegoating. The autopsy findings continued to shape the city's response. Dr. Raines presented his results at a special session of the Board of Health, urging a shift from quarantine to broader public health interventions. He recommended mass distribution of prophylactic antibiotics, a drug not yet widely available, and an aggressive rodent control program that would target all districts, not just the black neighborhood. Unfortunately, the recommendations clashed with the city's political leadership, who feared that extending resources to the white side would be seen as softening the containment strategy. By late December, the death toll in the Ville had risen to 27, while only 2 cases were reported in the surrounding white neighborhoods. The disparity was stark, and it sparked a quiet outcry among progressive physicians and activists. Dr. Margaret C. Harper, a public health nurse, organized a petition demanding equitable medical care and an end to the segregationist policies that had hampered the city's fight against the disease. The petition gathered over 5,000 signatures, but the mayor, fearing political backlash, refused to lift the quarantine until February 1925, when the last confirmed case finally tested negative. When the cordon was finally removed, the scars were both physical and psychological. Families who had been forced to stay indoors for weeks emerged to find their homes looted, their belongings missing, and their neighbors gone. Subscribe to the Autopsy Files for more stories like this.